Anybody, anywhere,
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen.
This pass caught by Paulsen, the tight end.
And from 106.7 The Fan, Grant Paulsen.
Welcome in to Take Command. Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen with you as we look back at the Madrid-Miami game for the Commanders, a 16-13 overtime loss. Watch us on YouTube on the 106.7 The Fan or Team 980 channels. Listen to the pod wherever you get your audio, and please subscribe, rate, review, and as we've been asking, please send the pod to a friend who hasn't checked it out before. A lot of Commanders fans don't know we're here, and we think they'd enjoy it. So make sure we keep growing, take command. But thank you guys all for checking this out. Logan, we have already broken down the game with our pal Kedrick Golston right after the kick on Sunday. But I want to get your kind of big picture thoughts before we get going here. What did you make of a much more competitive game, a much more inspired defensive effort, and a contest where Washington got to overtime, but unfortunately, as is the case sometimes when you're just not playing winning ball, found a way to come up second?
Yeah, so I think you hit a lot of the things that I was thinking about in the moment. Like, I actually enjoyed watching this game. I thought Cliff Kingsbury had a good offensive plan, offensive design. I thought defensively they played. I mean, that's the best I've seen them play maybe this year. I'm trying to think. Maybe the LA game was the closest, but like that was awesome to see them actually fitting runs correctly, communicating in the back end. There's not free runners in coverage. Like, all that stuff was great. And again, like when you're a team like this, when you're a team that's a little bit banged up, that's kind of gone through some adversity, that's kind of trying to reestablish its identity, you're always playing with fire. You're kind of playing with house money. And so, like I said this to somebody post-game, I think I was talking to Santana about it. He's like, the Miami Dolphins aren't a great football team right now. And that's true, right? But I think it was good to see that the defense played better. The offense played consistently. And the other element, too, that I would point to is like this is the style of game that you're going to have to win moving forward. And so what I mean by that is like the margin for error in these football games is so incredibly small. So, up until that point, I think they played a pretty clean brand of football. There's a couple pre-snap penalties. There's a false start defensively. There's a defensive hold. Those kind of things kind of rear up at moments in this game. But overall, pretty clean. And then obviously there's the muff and the interception late. And again, like those things are just not tenable. And when you're a struggling football team, which I've been a part of multiple times in my career, those are the types of things that absolutely kill you, right? You're just not good enough to consistently overcome those types of mistakes. And it was great to see the defense stand up after the muff punt, get the 4th-and-1 goal line stop. That was awesome. You missed 2 field goals. That's another thing that was a big talking point too. But it just, when you're at this level of football in the NFL, you got to play a cleaner brand, and they just weren't able to get it done. And I'm sure there's every Commanders fan is furious about it. But I do think, and I'm not just saying this, I do think there were some reasons after watching the tape to be like, man, like this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And there are some things to build off here moving forward into the back half of the season.
You mentioned the 2 missed field goals. Matt Gay's been released. Jake Moody's been signed. So you've got a new kicker moving forward. We'll get to that next segment when we look at the offensive part of this. But let's dive into the defense here in this first segment and the improvement, which was very real. And the numbers bear that out. I mean, if you look at 2 turnovers on down for the first time in 2+ football seasons, 2 sacks in the first half for the first time since the first month of the year, 3 sacks on 3rd down. In fact, the ability of this group to get off the field on 3rd down as often as they did. These were all things statistically that they had not done in weeks. So this was the best defensive performance in a while. Now, I could just see someone sitting at home, though, and going, well, okay, how much of this was that they played better or that DQ took over as the play caller, and how much of it was that you leveled down in competition? You went from, the gauntlet of the last 3 weeks to these elite teams playing really good offense to a very inconsistent Miami team. Yes, they'd scored over 30 points in 2 of their last 3, but they left some things out there. Waddle with a drop, Tua with a missed throw in the red zone to Dulcich. It could have been, a touchdown. Where are you on that? How much of this was good Washington versus bad Miami?
So, okay, let's look at the Detroit game, for example. I don't know if I said this on this show, but maybe I said this to you individually. That game defensively was so bad. I didn't know where the team was going to go. I was like, We're not fitting runs correctly. We're not communicating coverage as well. And that's like, it's a comprehensive thing. It's not like there's one play where they're not doing that. It was play after play after play. There's wide open dudes. There's guys not in the right gap. And there's, running backs running free. It was one of the hardest films I've ever watched to kind of contextualize, because I'm like, what do you do when this is what's happening on film, right? What is the solution? So coming into this game, my hope and my optimism for this was not very high at all. And so for them to come out and play a consistent, well-coached, well-spaced defense, I was almost in shock, because it was so bad the week before. And then this what we saw last week was NFL defense. Now, are they going to be able to shut out, the Detroit Lions? Probably not, right? But are they going to give up 40 to the Detroit Lions or 40 to the Seattle Seahawks? No. Like, if they can play this brand of defense, we're probably talking the stuff we were talking about all season. If they can just be the right level of bad, right? The right level of kind of like, they can win football games. And I think that's what they showed us in this game against the Dolphins.
Yeah, and that's when you have this number of injuries, like there's going to be people that scream from the rooftops into megaphones like, next man up, you still got to be great. And like, cool, I guess, tough guy. But I think there's a lot of us that realize, you're not going to be as good. But by the way, the ceiling at the beginning of the year for this defense, because they do have some real fatal flaws in personnel and some speed deficiencies and things possibly, was not to be a top 5 or 7 unit anyway. You were hoping to kind of be middle of the pack defensively. Now you lose a bunch of pieces and a cluster injuries at the edge, and you have a hard time setting edges and stopping the run and doing some of these things they have to do. So now you're not going to be good. But there is a difference, as we've been saying on the pod, between being bad and then whatever that was against Detroit and in the first half of Seattle, where nothing is at an NFL standard, right? And this was way better than that. I also thought some credit should be given to their offense a little bit. Oddly, we have also said one of the ways to improve this defense would be to convert some third downs. They were 6 of 13. To stay on the field and run more plays. They ran 65 plays. To win in time of possession, to out-snap your opponent. They were plus 14 plays, 33-19 in the first half over Miami. And when you are not good defensively and you're playing fewer snaps, then your 6.6 yards per play means less. It just means, if you have an addiction to spending money at malls, stay away from malls. Don't go to stores. And like, they weren't able to get up to the register and just grab a bunch of crap and put it on the counter because they weren't in the mall. And I think that helped too.
No, I think that's 100% right. So I think not only let's go through the full gambit here. Not only were they better on a down-to-down defensively, and we're going to talk about McGee and Kinlaw and Frankie and Bobby. Like, that group, man, like the linebackers specifically looked good, man. They were making plays, running downhill. Like, it was awesome to see kind of what we'd seen from them early in the year and what we'd seen from them last year come to the forefront here. But then also, like, you're not out there against this very dynamic offense for Miami. And I think like when the offense is able to possess the football, I mean, what was their first drive? It was like 10 plays, right? 11 plays, something like that. Like, that's harkens back to what we'd seen last year at times, right? Where you're able to insulate the defense, play complementary football. Like, this is the style of game you're going to win. You're going to have to win, right? The offense has to be good. The defense has to be whatever adjective you want to put in there. Right. It has to be serviceable. Like, is that maybe a better thing to say?
How about tolerable? Like, it has to be tolerable.
Yeah, and I think that's what we saw, right? The offense was able to, like, Cliff, man, was in his bag. He's in 11 personnel with Bates, 11 personnel with Zach. We're in 12 personnel with multiple configurations. We're in 13 personnel, multiple configurations. Defense has to fit that. Chris Rodriguez is getting downhill. We're staying on schedule. Like, all those things were so excellent to see offensively. And I do think it helped the defense. But even though it helped the defense, I think the defense stepped up. They get a 3-and-out with a cornerback blitz. I think we're going to talk about that more in detail in a second, with one of the most beautiful disguises I've seen by this team this year. Like, great execution, great play call. You know what I mean? Like, and then you get the two goal line stops. Like, those are big time moments for this defense, which has been much maligned over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I comped the pulling of Joe Witt as play caller and going to Dan Quinn to some extent to like pulling a goalie, right? Like, you could say it's Joe Witt's fault if you want to. I think the issues are way bigger. Having said that, in hockey, and I know you've played a little hockey now, your son plays hockey, there are times where teams pull a goalie when they're down by 5 just to basically shake everybody else up and go, help this guy, man. Like,
Yeah,
you
right.
just got him benched. And there was an element of that too, I think, where there was just more assignment sound, like energetic football being played. So whether we want to say it was DQ's play calling or not, and that might be the case. I mean, Dan Quinn's a hell of a defensive coordinator. I've used this stat on the show before, but as a DC, his defenses have always been top 5. That's his resume. Always.
That's
as a
crazy.
coach, normally, it's in the bottom half of the league when he's a head coach, and the best it's been, I think, was 14th. So I've been asking for him to just be more involved as it is. So I think there was probably some good from him calling the plays. That blitz that you referenced, I jotted down here in our notes in a section where I want to find out from you, what did he do differently than Witt? So you could give me that answer. But the blitz from the corner, that nickel spot, or out of the slot from the wide side of the field, I have not seen that all year the way they disguised that. That was awesome. By the way, the Dolphins had clearly not seen that because Ingold is kind of going out and gets completely surprised. And he's like, oh, whoops, Jonathan Jones is by him. Tua doesn't really see him coming. Like, more of that, please. Let's get in our bag and get creative and try some things.
Yeah, and again, like, let's just talk about that blitz. So they're up all in the line of scrimmage. They've got all their eligible kind of blitzers over to the offensive left. Ingold's eyes are to the left, and then ends up being a simulated pressure. And it's not a simulated pressure where they end up getting a cover 2, but the way the defense kind of accordion unfolds into cover 2 from a spacing standpoint is perfect. 2 is totally flummoxed. They get the free runner to the to the running back, essentially, because you get 4 guys. So what they did is they get 4 guys, 4 rushers to the offensive right. They stunt Kinlaw across the center's face. He kind of loops all the way around for contained to the offensive left. You've got 4 runners, so the back has to wrap around and pick that corner up. It's really well disguised, really well, very sharply executed. And I think that's the thing that, if you want to know something, I don't know how they did it, quite honestly. I don't know how you do it in a week, but they went from that seemed like never on the table for them to executing that perfectly in a week of work. I mean, it was tremendous. And so I look at that and I say to myself, like, that's kind of, it was just well coached. Everyone knew what to do. Everyone's eyes are good. There's no indecision kind of bumping around in space there, right? I'm going exactly where I want to be. Everyone's on a string in the back end, and you get a free runner to the quarterback because the back's eyes are to the offensive left because all the blitzers are over there. It's a really well-designed, really well-executed pressure in a critical moment in a game that gets you off the field.
And out of the box for what they've been doing. We've seen a lot of, A-gap stuff and mugging linebackers and bringing, Wagner downhill, Luvu downhill before he was on the edge. But we have not really seen a lot of that. I don't remember the last time you would see like Amos or Lattimore coming off the edge hot. So that was, I think it was a cool wrinkle, and it worked. And by the way, it was one of 3 sacks that they had on third down to end drives. I mean, their third down pressure packages got home. Jacob Martin, who I love, had just a high motor hustle sack in the red area. It's right after I mentioned that Tua kind of missed a throw that might have been a touchdown on second down. On third down, Martin gets that sack, and now you've got to settle for your second field goal. Von Miller had a sack, again, a high motor play on a play where Tua was forced from the pocket because of a Kinlaw rush that was awesome upfield. He got held. So third down, I mean, that was as good as they've been at really ending drives with pressures all season long. Well, let's get into some individual performances. Jordan McGee, I want to see what the tape told you about him with my eye in real time and then the limited amount I watched after. I just love the run and hit here, man. He had 2 open field tackles on Achane in the flat. Like, this has been a huge issue for this team. Backs getting the ball in space and then doing big things and making plays after. And on 2 different occasions, one of the most dynamic and prolific speed backs is in space. And instead of making McGee miss, he gets him to the ground on an island by himself. Hit another tackle on the tight end you work with, Greg Dulcich, in the open field as well, where it was like just him and a big bruising tight end who runs people over. What did you think of McGee?
I actually thought he had a great day. And I think, we're going to talk about this more specifically in a minute when we talk about what Dan did differently. But I thought they were in base defense a little bit more. I thought he played coverage structures that allow them to be in base defense a little bit more. And I think you felt the speed and athleticism and the playmaking of McGee at that off-ball spot. He also did some stuff with the nickel. We'll talk about that more specifically in a second. But again, McGee, really all the linebackers, it just seemed like they were very clear about what they needed to do, right? what is my
Where did the
response?
clarity come from this week, do you think?
So I think the big thing for me is like one of the things Joe Witt Jr. did, and I'd have to talk to Fletch or Smoot about the specifics of why this is hard, is he's played a lot of man coverage, right? And so when you're in a lot of man coverage, like the thing that hurts you is if you don't have the horses on the perimeter, right? Guys are going to just run by you, right? Or in the run fits, it's hard to fit the runs because I'm of two minds, right? I have the tight end. He's blocking. Oh, no, now he's in a pass route. I'm fitting the run. We've seen a lot of that this year. And I feel like when they get into like this cover 2 structure, this cover 3 look, they played a little bit of man. I'm not saying they play any man, but they played a little bit less man than I would say. It just felt like guys could be about their work. So, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I have the B gap. Oh, it's a pass. Let me spot drop to this location with good eyes because I know the formation, take away this concept, and then get back to my vision on the quarterback. And I think you saw that on both McGee tackles. He did a great job of that. And I just was like, man, like whatever this is, because they didn't run a lot of these coverages before, but the way they disguised the coverages and the way they executed the coverages and the way it allowed them to play the run, quite frankly, was great to see. It was great to see them just be confident downhill. Like there's a play where they're running like a drift, Miami, and they're in Tampa 2. And the number 2 clear out guy takes the safety to that side out. And I was like, oh man, they're going to hit the drift. And the Tampa player is Jeremy Reeves. And there is no indecision. There's no doubt. His eyes go right to the dig and he is sprinting to the intersection point. Tua has to pull it down. He has to check it down. And then Jordan McGee rallies and makes the tackle. And I was like, we just haven't seen that level of execution.
It's good
in
ball.
The defense this year. It's good. It was good, well-executed football. And there was no doubt. And I was like, and I think we were talking about this last week. I was like, how do you coach these things up in a week? And somehow they did it. And they were really solid and they were very specific. And I think there's a couple things I'd point to. There's a missed tackle by Quan, which is, I think, ends up getting him to the sideline for the coaching correction thing. There's a thing on a keeper where there's a coaching. But like outside of that, there wasn't a lot of bad eyes, especially in pass coverage. Now, we can talk about the run fits more here in a second, which I thought overall were good, but there's a couple things that need to get clarified and fixed. But it was stuff like that. And so McGee, Frankie, Bobby, like Bobby looked fast. He looked confident to his coverage responsibilities, and McGee looked the same. And so there are times where McGee's getting blocked and he's fitting on offensive linemen. It's not perfect, but I think you felt a general confidence and speed from the second level of the defense, including Noah Igbenogany, that I just haven't seen for a couple of weeks. And so that was great to see.
Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen, take command. All right, before we go rapid fire on a couple other individual players I wanted to hit on, there were a couple other things it sounds like that you wanted to discuss in terms of changes to the defense and meat on the bone there. You mentioned the nickel position and then some run fit things, but just I guess I'll tee it up by saying what were some of those other observations about Dan Quinn adjustments?
Yeah, so I think the other thing, too, was putting Noah Igbenogany, bringing Quan down as that extra run defender in your 5-man fronts, like guys that were a little bit more physically violent, right? Like I think I love Mikey. I think he's a really good football player, but one of the things that seemed like it was an issue for him was like fitting runs and kind of the man run fit responsibilities of playing the nickel. And so I felt like when you put Noah in there, when Quan's that extra box defender, they just had a better physicality and a better confidence in those moments that really showed up and allowed them to make plays. And so I think, like we talked about, you're in base defense a little bit more, so 3 linebackers on the field. Because you're playing a little bit more zone, it's not an issue in terms of coverage responsibility. And then when we are in nickel, like the nickel's responsibility just seems so clear to me when I was watching. It wasn't like, oh, you have him, I have him, like, which has been an issue this entire year. It was like, no, I have the B gap, I have the C gap, I have this guy in coverage, this is the motion, I've got this guy. And I think those little personnel tweaks, being in base more, getting a more full-time kind of that's all I'm thinking about nickel player in there, showed up big. Noah Igbenogany has that tackle for loss on a nickel pressure, which was great, where he's like kind of ripping across the receiver's face for the tackle on the back. And I thought, like, whatever that is, whatever the simplicity of the coverages, I thought was a big part of it. And it just simplified responsibilities. And guys were playing quote unquote Commanders football, which again, I sound excited and optimistic about it because it was so poor the weeks prior that I didn't think we'd ever get back to this moment where we're talking about this defense in a positive way.
Yeah, it was the lowest point total they've allowed since the Chargers. So you're sitting there going, well, guys, they've lost 6 in a row, 7 of 8. Look, there's still all kinds of bigger picture conversations to have about this program. But as we really contextualize and dive in deep on a defense that coming off of allowing, 44, 30, 38, 44 the last month, gave up 16 with overtime and a short field goal after a turnover, in the game losing sequence. There was this was the story of the week, frankly, was are they going to be able to make any adjustments on defense, and will it look different with Dan Quinn? And so we're diving in on that. Few guys really quickly. We got to go rapid fire here. But I thought Eddie Goldman was really, really good. Was he as stellar as it seemed to me, getting into the backfield and making a couple of plays?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. And this is something that I have a hard time with. And I think this is maybe the position where the level of competition calls into question the production the most, right? Because Eddie Goldman in the goal line has a great stop on 4th and 1. Frankie does a great job pinching across the tight end's face. It gets muddied up. Goldman makes the tackle. It's another great play where he's running down the line of scrimmage, kind of chest bumps the center into the back and makes the tackle for a loss. He has 2 tackles for loss in this game. And Eddie Goldman is playing like Eddie Goldman from 3 years ago all of a sudden. And then Javon Kinlaw, I mean, I've covered this team now for 3 years, has maybe the most disruptive game I've seen a defensive tackle have since I've been covering the team. And a lot of that, I think, is because he's an absolute man-child. He used his hands so much better in this game. His gap control was so much better in terms of, like, when we're running stunts, I'm not too releasing on gaps. I'm getting in the gap. I've got my hands on people. And he was incredibly disruptive. But part of me is like, is it because the Miami offensive line is one of the teams they've played recently, one of the least effective groups in the offensive front? And so, yeah, those guys were great. Like, Kinlaw was amazing. Goldman was amazing. But is it because that they're playing guys there's playing 2 rookies or a rookie and a second-year player on the left side of that group? They're playing Brewer, who's a good player, not a great player. Strange at the right guard has been kind of a journeyman at the position. And the other guy on their right tackle was a backup in Kansas City 2 years ago. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
Is it because of that? But I mean, I think they aced the test that they were given in terms of physicality.
How do coaches evaluate that position? I struggle with D-tackle play sometimes because there's like the really good flash plays are very obvious and impactful and meaningful. Like and I'm not saying this game specifically because I thought Kinlaw was pretty awesome in general, but like there's games where he'll make 1 or 2 excellent plays. And I'm like, well, I just go through at the end and kind of buzz the stat sheet. And I'm like, a couple TFLs, like Kinlaw was really good. And then you go back and watch and you're like, man, there's a lot of these runs where he's not where he needs to be, or he got moved out of a hole. Like, does a staff look at that like they would, a receiver or something, where like, hey, you had 3 plays of 25 or more yards, so your job's to make explosives? Or do they look at it and go, you had 37 minuses, that's too many, but you get what I'm saying,
yeah,
and like 19 pluses, so it was a bad game? Like, how do they view that position?
I think it's the same way. I think obviously you want some explosive kind of offset. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you make a bad play but you have 3 sacks, like that's going to erase to a certain extent that negative play. And I think you articulated that beautifully. Like, there's times, especially the last couple of weeks, where Kinlaw's like, he's explosive, he's dynamic, but we're not super tight with our run fit, and there's a big crease here, and like it makes it hard for Bobby to fit the right gap, and like those things are detrimental to the defense long term. And so, like, the reason I wanted to give Kinlaw and Goldman, quite frankly, a shout out is because not only were they extremely potent in terms of their splash plays, tackle for loss, total tackles, all those different things. He's got the tackle on the goal line, which is great, on the 3rd and 2 or whatever it is, Kinlaw I'm talking about. But he also did a great job getting into the position that he was supposed to be in and then holding point. We always talk, I think I've been talking about run fits now for like 4 weeks, and just how they've been very, very poor. And a lot of it is because guys are releasing, they're not holding their point when they need to. And he did a great job in this game, hands-on blocks, splitting double teams. When he felt the double team starting to wash, he would sit it down, throw guys by. I mean, he was dominant in this game. And, I think people are going to look at his PFF grade, which was like in the 50s. But like, that is, I think the reason he gets that grade is because he has a defensive holding and he has a false start. So they really weigh penalties very negatively in that grading system. But overall, man, holy cow, like his pass rush I thought was excellent. His run defense was the best the best I've seen all season, quite honestly. And so he deserves his flowers 100%. He's a big reason for the success. But again, like, is it because he is the biggest human being I've ever seen, just picking on people who've never seen? Like, I think about Patrick Paul, Chris Paul's brother, plays left tackle for the Miami Dolphins. Like, he's never seen a human being like that. And Kinlaw played like an absolute alien in this game, just throwing him on the ground, pushing him back in the quarterback. Is it just because you've never seen that monster before? And the next team we play, they're going to be like, we see this every single week. I don't know, but we'll talk about that more comprehensively later on, but he definitely deserves his flowers for this game because he was an absolute stud.
Take command, Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen. All right, one more. We're going long on the defense, but again, I thought that was the big story of the week, so we might as well take out a shovel and dig in on this thing. I wanted to hit the secondary. Sanders still moves back outside. This is something fans have been wanting to see for several weeks, I think. There was some question after the Lattimore injury. Do you bounce him outside then? They didn't. Now you have Amos hurt, so both your starters are done for the year, so you didn't really have much of a choice. I wanted to see more Igbenogany because I thought he played okay last year, and he was seemingly in the doghouse for whatever reason. Remember, there was the story that they were like floating him as a trade candidate in training camp, and then he just couldn't get on the field. But regardless, it felt better to me. What did you see from Stanris still on the outside? And then last secondary question, you mentioned Quan Martin went to the bench at one point in time to get coached up. We can get to this in a second, but everyone talks about the Sanristo regression this year. Quan has also taken a step back. I'm wondering why that is.
Yeah, so I think this really speaks to Dan, quite honestly, if I'm going to be like, because they were in way more zone coverages, and the responsibilities in those zone coverages I thought were way more clear for the secondary players specifically. So like you talk about Mikey, they just weren't in these difficult man-to-man coverage situations that often, right? He's the flat player in cover 2. He's the thirds player in cover 3. He's the quarters player in cover 6. Like, and again, there's a ball completed on him, but I just thought like there was a confidence and a clarity. We talked about the middle level of the defense, like to the second level of the defense as well, and I think, again, like this offense is play action, pass driven, like it's a little bit more simplistic in terms of drop back than the teams we've seen the last couple of weeks. But again, I thought there was a clarity for everybody, you know what I mean? For everybody in the back end. Like, and it's funny, like I thought Quan played pretty well for 3/4 of this ball game. And then he has that missed tackle on the Waddle dig where he kind of picks off Mikey on the tackle. And then he has the, it was a boot where the tight end kind of comes out, and he's got number 2, obviously, but his eyes are in the backfield, loses number 2. It ends up being like a 10-yard gain. So I thought he played well up until that point, so again, like two bad plays in a row. One's an explosive, one's a first down. Maybe you feel like you need to get him on the bench and have a little conversation. I totally understand that. Totally support that. And I also think it's good to keep guys accountable, right? But in terms of secondary play, I just thought more zone coverage, more clear. Like they just seem more clear about what they needed to do versus certain looks. Like there's times where they're 4 over 2, right? Or they're 4 over 3, and everybody knows exactly where to go. And I just like whatever that is, whatever that dial is. So to me, it's like superficially very high level. I'm like, they just played more zone coverage, but they also, the quality of the zone coverage that they played was also significantly better, right? So it was, and again, I would have thought that was impossible coming into this week. So I think that helped all the secondary players look and play fast and confident.
A performance to build on for this defense going into the bye. If they turn in outings like that, they're going to win some games on the other side of this thing for sure. I mean, this was the first time in the Dan Quinn era, in fact, since he's been here, where Washington held an opponent to fewer than 25 points and lost the game. They'd been 13-0 in games like that with Dan Quinn as their head coach. So that's a winning caliber performance. We'll get to the offense next on Take Command. Logan Paulsen and Grant Paulsen with us. Welcome back, Take Command with Logan Paulsen, who played a decade in the NFL. I'm Grant Paulsen. You can watch Logan on all of the Commanders content throughout the week and into their bye week. You can listen to me on 106.7 The Fan. All right, let's get into the offense. Logan, we were just kind of going through it. They moved the ball effectively. They got the run game going. There were some good things, but not enough points for them in this game, just 13. And you're not going to win scoring 13 points very often. So let's just start with your big picture thoughts, and then I'll drill down on some things.
Yeah, it's funny when you go through the film and you're watching, like I watch all the runs, all the passes. I'll watch it in consecutive order. I'll watch the O line from the end zone copy. And, I take notes and greens and reds, like I've talked about that before on the show. And I just was like, this is like pretty good. It's like the offensive line's pass protecting well, and the run game, they're moving people off the spot. Chris Rodriguez is getting downhill. The play action RPO game was excellent, in terms of finding chunk plays. They stayed on schedule in a way they haven't done in a long time. I think a lot of that has to do with Chris Rodriguez and his rushing efficiency. I thought Cliff Kingsbury did some good stuff with different personnels. We talked about the 13, Big 13, 12, Big 12, and just getting different personnel on the field, which was great. Even Ja'Cory Brooks, no, the
Jacoby
receiver, Jacoby Jones, like the way they utilized him is kind of this big F who's inserting on counter. He's digging receivers out in power. He runs an isolation route versus man on 3rd and 5 and absolutely dices the corner for an explosive play.
That
I just was like,
was sick. He left him in his dust.
And it's like, they're kind of using him as like a Niles Paul tight end. And I just thought, like, that's awesome. That's incredibly creative. And then I look up, and after doing all this film watch, I'm like, dude, they only scored 13 points. And I think I said the exact same thing to you before we started this segment. They only scored 13 points, but like the meat of the sandwich was excellent, but you didn't get the result that you wanted. And a little bit of that is just situational football, like red zone, 3rd down, strike zone going in. Like, they didn't get the execution that they needed. Even in the 2-minute drive at the end of the game, like that was really well executed up into the point where they got to kick the field goal. So I think a little bit of it is like we talked about it with the defense. Like, when you're in a game like this, when the football team's health is like this, you're going to be in a situation where every single detail matters. And I think you felt that in this offensive performance, because there's you pointed out the sack that Mariota takes before the field goal, which makes it a little bit longer. Zach Ertz slips on the goal line, incompletion, which would have been probably 7 points, knowing Zach and that angle route. He's run that 4 million times in his career.
Butter. Yeah, you take the 2 misses from 51, and I know 56 is long, but in this league, that's like 47 at this point. So there's 6 points, and then you leave the touchdown on the field after run, the arrow route thing to Zach Ertz where he falls over, and it's like, okay, now you could add 13 points right there, and now you're up to 26 points for the game. So that's how you only scored 13. It's a small margin. And I do want to talk about some of the things they did poorly in our final segment, because, again, we're kind of looking as zoomed in as possible on some of the nuance of the game, and on both sides of the ball, there was plenty to like. I was joking with you. We're getting to talk about this like a real football game, where the last month was not that, it was,
yeah, right.
They were just getting destroyed. And this is like, if they've been playing games like this all along, they probably win half of those games. And
correct.
And, it's a different record and it's a different conversation. But from a 10,000 foot view, I keep coming back to this. It's not great. They have lost 6 in a row. They did lose a game the Dolphins tried to give them. They did put a ball on the ground on a punt, and they did throw an interception, and they did give the game away at the end of the game. You have 1st and 10 from the 40. And you run 3 plays in 40 seconds and you get 2 yards, and a guy that can't kick from 50 plus has to kick a 56-yarder. Like, there's a lot of bad we can get into. But just going through some of the things that are encouraging here into the bye week. So starting with Chris Rodriguez, the 17-yard run he made with that jump cut, that was Bill-esque at left tackle to get back into the guard. I did not know he had that club on the bag. Like, I didn't think that was on the menu for my guy. And I've always liked Chris Rodriguez. He makes the most of every opportunity he gets. This feels about right to me, getting him in that 10 to 12 carry range, maybe, if Bill's going to be in the, for right now, being that he's not the hot hand, 7 to 10 carry range or something. But Rodriguez is a 5-yard per carry guy in the league. That's what he's been, the last 3 years. And another opportunity for him, and he aced the test, I thought.
Man, and he just runs with such physical violence, man. Like, there's that little Wanda run that he has down in the low red that sets up the first score, where Marcus Mariota checks, it's cover 2, he checks the run, and the linebacker scrapes over top, and it's him one-on-one with the back, and Chris Rodriguez absolutely flattens that dude. And I saw, like, there's a mentality that he brings behind this offensive line that we've talked about each week is getting better. And like the way they can run block is helping them, I think, be more efficient on a down-to-down basis. So I look at it, I say to myself, man, like that seems to be the formula. And people say like, oh, well, Bill's more explosive. I think that's true. But again, this kind of reminds me of like Jahmyr Gibbs when he first came in the league, and Montgomery's getting more touches because Montgomery keeps you on schedule. And I think like that's the one thing about Chris, like he'll run into a pile. Like there was a play, I forget, it was in the first quarter where there's a free runner, he gets hit, kind of spins out of it, falls forward. You're like, oh man, that's a 2-yard gain, but it ends up being a 4-yard gain. You're in 2nd and 6. And I think like he deserves a lot of credit, the offensive line and him and the blocking service in general. Tight ends, Brandon Coleman, I thought had a great game blocking as the extra tight end. Deserve a ton of credit for just keeping you on schedule, keeping you in manageable second down distances. And his running style and his running approach, I think that's the other thing. He doesn't really take a lot of negative runs, which, I think about when I was here in Washington, the first thing Bobby Turner said to the running backs was like, stay on schedule. Stay on schedule. It's okay to have a 2-yard gain. We just can't have a 0 or a negative run. And I feel like Chris kind of embodies that at the moment.
You mentioned a Wanda run for people listening. You're just talking outside zone, normally weak side. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, so Wanda, W is at least in the like Kyle Shanahan West Coast terminology. Wanda is a weak side run, so away from the tight end, with no support player there, so no fullback or receiver accounting for that extra spot. So it just is informing the center that he's got to target it all the way over because there's no fullback or receiver blocking that first spot in the box. So Wanda, yep.
Yeah. Okay. So then, so Rodriguez, I thought was really good. You mentioned the Brandon Coleman element. I loved that. Now I'm not going to sit here and pretend like they haven't done stuff like that. It's just generally, it's been somebody else, right? But getting Coleman on the field more is important to me. I think he's played well enough when he plays. He's also a 3rd-round pick. There are too many draft picks for me that are not as involved as I'd like them to be. I know Ben Sinnott was hurt, but this is a 2nd-round pick that can't get any touches midway through his 2nd season as a tight end, which does not work for me. So Brandon Coleman as a 3rd-round pick being back in the mix makes me feel good, makes me feel better about the direction of things. But I actually thought he kicked ass, too, in the running game a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's always good to see. Like, he's a big, freaky athlete. Like when you look at his RAS score and stuff, his relative athletic score, big, freaky dude. You're like, man, it'd be nice to get him on the field a little bit. So I think to get him this opportunity, to get him seeing NFL defensive ends, NFL competition for, I think it was 14 or 15 snaps, is smart because it's helping him sharpen his tool chest, get him ready to go, and getting him prepped for when he'll have a larger role, hopefully, in this offense at some point.
How much of that was like planned versus no Sinnott?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. I think I would assume planned because I think Colston Yankoff is a guy that when I watch him does a lot of really good things. He does a lot of really good things in the run game and the pass game. He's got a little twitch, a little suddenness to him. So I think they feel very comfortable with him getting reps. And so I don't know, I think they wanted to use the big personnel because it does stuff defensively. It gets them more into base, helps you with the play action stuff in terms of pass protection. So I think it was part of the game plan. I think it was very, and then again, I give a lot of credit to Cliff. It was smart, well thought out. And they got good miles out of it.
Is it something, it's something on this pod we've been calling for weeks is more 12 and 13 personnel and just like, let's throw the ball at heavy looks too. Let's get some opportunities. I've been begging for more under center. They had a couple of under center plays in the first half that I highlighted. Be still my beating heart. 4th and 1, they go under center for God's sake. And they go play action with a tight end.
I think that was a little Spider 2Y banana.
I was going to say, that was my Spider 2Y banana bit that I love. Yeah. And that was your boy Colston Yankoff, by the way, making a catch. That would be perfect if Ben Sinnott played for like Sinnott as that, fullback almost look, getting out of the backfield. They used him that way in college, but who knows if that would have been him or not if he was healthy. But regardless, under center, play action, a tight end, an open throw, like, my God, man.
Easy.
That's the real deal Holyfield. That's all I've ever wanted.
Real deal Holyfield, and it's one of those plays that gets you excited. You know what I mean? It gets you excited about kind of the way the coordinator's thinking about stuff because you're like, oh man, here they go, they're going to run the ball. And Cliff has such a good feel in those situations. When Jaden's there of doing that little zone read, kind of, oh, it's a zone read. I'm going to run. I'm going to throw it to Terry for a big gain. And I love that he had that in the bag and he was thinking of the game in that way and find an easy.
By the way,
completion.
that was a 4th and 1 in minus territory that they went for. So shout out to Dan Quinn on that. I know you've been kind of pushing for more, going for 4th downs a lot like last year. My point all along has been in plus territory, and they have. I mean, Matt Gay had kicked in one game, he'd kicked field goals in the last 3 before he missed 2 in this game. So they obviously weren't feeling great about him, but that tells you they're going for a lot of 4th downs and plus. But you had even said on the pod last week, it's okay 4th and short near the midfield and in the minus area. And that's what they did. So that got them points on that drive. Quinn deserves some credit for that. Overall for Cliff, I felt better about this. Their screen game was heavier involved. I think I counted 4 screens if you count that center screen on the touchdown to Deebo Samuel, which was beautifully designed. I'd love you to go through that play for me. But they came out, they had a running back screen that worked on the first drive as well. Mentioned Coleman's implementation. The quick game with Mariota is a no-brainer. He's so good at it. Early in the game, just getting the ball out of his hand. He started 5 for 5. I thought Cliff had a very, very good game. This was the kind of design with lesser personnel, and because of that, lesser results, lesser points. But this kind of offense is why he was a hot coaching candidate last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, I think this is one of those things where it's like, the formula for messing up this offense has been play a lot of man coverage and blitz. And for whatever reason, Anthony Weaver didn't do that as much. They played a little bit more zone, and I think you felt kind of some of the space they were able to cultivate, like in this offense. I thought that was really good by Cliff. All the stuff that seemed to work last year, the quick game, the RPO, was here for us. And I think it shows you how they're able to stay efficient with that tool kind of at its disposal when it's available to you. So I think, Cliff did a great job. You mentioned the screens. I love the screen. He's got such an innovative way of running screens, just the misdirection and the eye candy that he presents. So on that one to Deebo, they're kind of pushing the back outside. Deebo's in motion. He kind of throttles down like he's going to chip, works back inside. Everybody's pushing to the back because it looks like they're throwing a flare. He runs a little bit of an angle, kind of a tunnel screen. Remember on Madden, those little tunnel screens used to run. The offensive line gets out. And then Deebo, with any kind of space, man, just makes you hold your breath. And it was cool to see him kind of bring back some of that athletic juice, finish that run, get downhill, shoulder square, run into the end zone there. So well executed, well designed in terms of kind of creating the space and creating the angles for the offensive line. And also the Wildcat usage. I think they had a 3rd and 1 where he was a Wildcat quarterback. He is a powerful, strong son of a gun and really just gives you a ton of advantage. So that's something I'd like to see them utilize with him more, especially in those short yardage situations. Yeah,
short yardage, get him in the gun for that. Yeah, the Wildcat direct snap, and then just get downhill behind big bodies, man. That's hard to stop. It's tush pushy in the sense of if you're in short yardage, good luck.
Yeah, he's just so strong. He's such a strong runner. And he's a receiver, so it's weird to think of him that way. But he's maybe got the best contact balance of anybody on the team in terms of how he runs. So, getting him those touches I think would be great.
Take command, Logan Paulsen and Grant Paulsen. I want to talk about the change they're making at kicker and discuss a couple of the fun elements of Logan's trip to Madrid and the atmosphere for the first ever game in Spain. We'll do that next before we say goodbye on Take Command. Welcome back on Take Command. So we broke down the defense and the offense, looked at a lot of the things Washington did well enough to give themselves a chance to get to overtime. But the fact is, Logan, they did lose again, and they've lost 6 straight, and that's 7 of 8. It's unfathomable when you think about last year, and we always bring up the injuries, and they're a part of it. They're part of the explanation. There are other big issues that they've got to iron out to make sure that with $90 million and a top 7 or 8 pick, whatever this is going to be, they get right going into next year and they bounce back, and that this is the anomaly, not year 1 under Dan Quinn. But when you try to decipher why they lost, it did feel to me like 2 bad teams doing bad team things in winning time. How many times last year did Dan Quinn say, he referenced the winning time, right? And it was they just always made the play, Washington did. They just always did the thing that you had to do to win. This was the antithesis of that, where the Dolphins are inexplicably kind of giving you the game over and over, and you just won't take it. You're getting the ball back with 4 minutes to go. Whoopsie daisy, no, you're not. You put it on the ground. You get the ball first in overtime, first play, interception. And there are other little subtleties, whether it's, a drop pass here or missed assignment there within the plays. So it all adds up to, coming out of the bye, they're going to have gone almost 2 calendar months without winning a football game, which just has to be so difficult in that building with the work you're putting in to just not get results out of it.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think, the muff punt is a really good example. And you, like, something we've talked about is, like, when you're a team that's struggling, like, you need to be good in all aspects, right? So like, with regards to the muff punt, like, they go for it on 4th and 2, right? Zach Ertz slips. People say, oh, they should have kicked the field goal, whatever. I actually have no problem with that, because you're going to get the ball back after this, probably at the 50-yard line, and you are going to be able to go in and score, possess the football for the last 4 minutes, kick a field goal. Like, everything is at your disposal. Like, I love the process with that decision, right? The problem is, like, the decision is fine. It's the execution that becomes an issue, right? So you hit this punt, like, great. So you missed the touchdown. Bummer. You slip. Stuff happens, right? Defense does a great job standing up. They punt. You get the ball back. What'd you say? 4 minutes left, Grant? Was that right?
Yes.
4 minutes. So perfect.
Just over.
You're gonna get the ball back with 4 minutes left. You're gonna run a couple plays. You're gonna kick a field goal. Game over. Let's go home, back to America, right? Then you muff the kick, right? And I think, like, those are the things, like, that, like, good decision, good execution by the defense. You missed on the 4th and 2. You muff the kick, and, like, those are the things that kill you, right? Even in the overtime, you win the toss. First play overtime, you throw an interception. Like, again, those are obvious mistakes, but even though the process was good, the muff punt is the one that really sticks out to me, because even though the process was good leading up to that, the execution wasn't there, right? And then you even get saved, right? Because the Miami goes down, they try to knock it in with a 4th and 1. You do a good job of stopping it down there at the end zone. Great job standing up defense. Talk about 2 big moments for the defense there. You go down, you drive, and then you miss a field goal. Like, there were just in those critical moments, like you're talking about, like, just the inability to kind of, you've done all the hard stuff, 4th down stop, drive it into field goal range, right? And then we can't get it where we need to get it. And I think, like, that's kind of the nature of the team at the moment is.
Well, Commanders fans get this, I think, Logie, because last year they saw it and they know what it, and we watch ball, like, we see what the good teams look like. When you get 1st and goal from the 5, that has to be points, right?
Yeah.
And it turns into 0. When you get 1st and 10 from the 40 with 50 seconds to go, any analytical choice of winning is like at 80-some%.
Right.
You got to catch the ticket, man.
Yeah.
And to me, that's 3 runs and we're getting out of here with a 49-yard field goal, right? You're running it 3 times for 8 yards or 7 yards or whatever. And they throw a near interception on 2nd down. They take a deep shot going for it all, which was actually an incredible throw by Mariota. Moore can't make a one-handed catch. But, like, to have 1st and 10 from the 40 after that little whip route by Jacoby Jones goes for 25, and then basically 35 or whatever seconds comes off the clock, so there's 15 left, and you've got 2 yards, and your kicker who can't kick from 55 is now at 56. Like, everyone's mad at the missed field goal. You've already screwed it up there. Like, You needed more yards. So there were so many things in this game, don't get me wrong, where I'm watching it and I'm going, what are we doing here, Harry? This is how you lose in this league. They are really good last year at making the winning play, and this year they're doing the opposite. So that has to be acknowledged. But the game they just played against Miami will give you a chance to hang with Denver and steal a game if they turn the ball over in the second half. It will have you right there with the Giants and the Vikings at the end of those games. And that's my ask right now with this undermanned group. Like, I don't want to turn on the TV and watch them get embarrassed and not show up like they were doing for a few weeks against the elite teams. But hopefully I now have some hope that this thing can get back on the tracks in a way that as the year goes on, you can send a message and tell the NFC East, like, we're back up, man. This is not going to be like this next year. This is not what we are.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well said. And again, like, it's those moments where you just gotta The execution's a little bit tighter. You just need those plays. And I think about last year, and they always made them. They made those plays every single time they came up, right? You made the right decision. You got the right execution. You maybe get that completion on the Moore play down because that's Terry McLaurin. He makes that play. You know what I mean?
Last year, that's a catch, and you're either scoring on the next play or you're kicking a 22-yard field goal.
Right. And I think like that's the difference, right? Is like the execution is just a little bit off. And that's the difference between winning and losing ball game. Like that's really what it is. Cause I thought this was a well-coached defense yesterday. I thought the offense was well designed. And so you say, well, why don't we win games? It's exactly what you're talking about, man. It's like the little moments, right? Where it's like, we don't get exactly what we need to. And like the process is right, but we don't get what we need to. Oh, we get saved by the defense, but we don't get. And I think like that's probably, in some ways, I'm not as frustrated about it because, like you said, like this is the first competitive game we've talked about in a couple of weeks, which is great. But it is frustrating. It is frustrating to kind of know that you're that close and we can't get where we. And again, like there's a ton of mitigating factors, the injuries, whatever, blah blah blah. You get your backup quarterback in, blah blah blah. But like, you know, like those are frustrating things to talk about and watch real time.
One change going into the bye week that I've mentioned a couple times, Matt Gay has been released. By all accounts, pretty good teammate, pretty good dude, and it didn't work out, which stinks. But you got to make kicks. It's a profession where if you're missing kicks, you're going to lose your job, and that was the case. So here comes Jake Moody. Moody's interesting. He was a star kicker in college at Michigan. He's one of the highest drafted kickers in recent history. Top 100 pick, which is insane to me, in the third round. Like, what a ridiculous thing to do, by the way. Like, I get it. John Lynch and all those guys in San Francisco, including my guy Adam Peters, who's handsome and I love. They're smarter than me. They have more football knowledge in their cuticle than I have. No one should ever draft a kicker in the third round, ever, 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 ever. And if you come to my office with a plan where you're going to do that, I will send you out of my office and tell you to come up with a new plan, especially when you have very few picks in that draft like they did. But regardless, whatever. It also seems to work out this way a lot with these kickers, like Roberto Aguayo in the second round, Jake Moody in the third round. It's like the pressure.
It's like the pressure of being drafted high, like gives them the yips. It's very weird. Yeah, it's like,
weird. But anyway, here's my thought on this. I've been here since the beginning as a Commanders Redskins fan over the years, where there are so many guys, Logan, that have come through here and ended up great kickers elsewhere after they like took the training wheels off here and struggled. David Akers was this guy. Graham Gano was this guy. Dustin Hopkins. You could go through so many names of Sean Sweezum, these guys that were like, if they just waited a little longer, maybe they would have gotten it together. But then they kicked for 10 years for somebody else. Maybe it works out that way for Washington. Like so many kickers, second, third jobs. I was watching Monday Night Football last night, Raiders, Cowboys, and Daniel Carlson, who was a really good college kicker who was drafted in the 5th round by the Vikings, who had a terrible start to his career in Minnesota and got cut, I think in his first season, actually. Went to the Raiders, has been there ever since, is one of the better kickers in the league. This happens all the time. So I'm hoping maybe Moody could be the answer here. Because he's 25 years old.
Yeah, I mean, you hope so. It's kicking's hard, man. Like I've been around a lot of kickers. It's like golf, right? And it's so technical. It's so specific. And if you're off at all mentally, like you're just not going to be good at it. So hopefully Moody's kind of kicked around a little bit, worked through all the technical mental issues, and is going to be ready to rock and roll here for the Commanders. Because that'd be great, man. It'd be great to have somebody that you feel good about for more than a year. And I can't remember the last time we've had a very consistent kicker. Like I feel like even when I was here, we were turning over kickers at a high clip also, so it's just it's a tough deal, and it's just hard to find the guy with the right mental makeup to get it done.
It's tough. And in this league now, you're at such a disadvantage if you don't have a guy you trust, because you turn on the TV and you watch like Brandon Aubrey, and everything from 55 is like splitting the uprights like a kid who plays Madden all the time, on easy. And it's like he's kicking a 62-yarder that'd be good from 70, and it looks like it's a 44-yard field goal. And then it's like pushing a boulder up a hill here to just get someone to, like, someone goes out for a 49-yarder and you're nervous, It doesn't have to be this way. But with Quinn and Peters, this is the 8th kicker that they've brought in here since they got here.
That's unbelievable, man.
Now, they haven't all kicked in games. It's a little bit of a misleading kind of stat.
But still, though.
Yes. I mean, they've been looking. They're turning over stones. I don't know what else they can do. All you can do is bring dudes in and ask them to kick and see if it goes through the yellow things or not. And they keep looking. So next up is Jake Moody. All right, before I let you go and before we say goodbye on Take Command, Logan, I want to ask you about Madrid really quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to know about the in-stadium atmosphere. What was it like, and just kind of the stadium itself?
So that stadium is sick. It's like this historic kind of mecca for soccer. And the second you get in there, you totally feel why. It's this huge stadium, kind of old traditional college where it's these levels that aren't pushing back, but they're kind of stacked on top of each other. So it feels like you're just at the middle of like a black hole, which is a great feeling when you're playing a game like that. And then surprisingly, like that, I don't know what I was expecting, but the sports culture in Madrid is really high. Like they love sports. They support it really high. Like, so I didn't know that, but then we went to this flag football thing and it was electric. The kids were going crazy. The school was going crazy. The teachers are out on the field. Like everybody loves sports and you can feel that in the stadium. And so like going to a soccer game there must be absolutely bonkers because like half those people don't even really know what's going on with football, and they were screaming their faces off. You know what I mean? So it was an awesome spot. It's right in the middle of like downtown Madrid. So like they quarantine out, section off the streets, right? There's no parking. You got to take a taxi. They stop you at the police line. You walk through the police line. Like it's really, really cool. So, the city was great. The people were great. The sports environment was awesome. So like, I don't know if they'll ever pick up football as being a core.
Did it feel weird? Like during the game, did they know when to cheer, or did it have the same rhythms in the crowd of a normal NFL game?
So that was something I was kind of paying attention to, and there were a lot of American fans there. A lot of Americans that had come in. So I think it did kind of hit the. But the things that were really funny was like they would really cheer, like really, really cheer for like the field goal, or like when someone got like running, like a running back broke through the line, it would just escalate and crescendo in this way that I wasn't familiar with, like in an American fan base. You know what I mean? Because usually it crescendos at the snap, it quiets down. There's the big play. There's an acute cheer, right? And then it stops and you go. Here it was like Marcus Mariota's run. It was like it built. It like was this crescendo. It was like this wave of momentum, like pushing him forward. And so again, like they really get, because I guess I didn't know this, but rugby's big there too. And like in rugby, that would be a big breakout moment for them in the game. Okay. And so like they cheer to like support the runner in a way that they don't really do in the United States, which was fun. I really enjoyed that actually.
By the way, that Mariota run was 44 yards, I think. Yeah. Two things. One, there's a picture I saw of like 9 dolphins chasing him.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's one of the. I'm going to send it to you. Have you seen this?
I think send it to me, but I think I've saw it.
It's one of the coolest pictures I've ever seen. If I'm Mariota, I'm getting that on a wall. Like it is the coolest picture ever. They're all like a wall of dolphins, like locked arms, basically, right behind him, and he's just running from them. So that's number one. Number two, do you realize he has the 4 longest carries by a quarterback for the Commanders this year? Not Jaden Daniels. And they pretty much played a similar amount of time, right? Maybe Mariota by a game has an edge, but like his runs of 44, I think one's at about 30, then like 22 are the longest. Jaden's longest is 18, which is not to take. I'm not trying to knock Jaden. I'm just saying like Mariota still can scoot a little bit.
Dude, and he's, what is he, 33, 32? Like, I think about how tight my hamstrings used to be just later in my career. Like, and he's just getting out, just getting loose. So good for him, man. Looks great.
That was something. What was the best thing you ate in Madrid?
Gosh, man, the tapas there is amazing. Like any restaurant, any tapas spot you go to, you're just like, this is like awesome. Like they had like these, empanadas, which were awesome. They had like steak skewers at the spot I went to that were great. They had like fried beef dumplings at this other spot that I went to.
I didn't know you could say the word fried. I didn't know you were allowed to say that.
It was pretty impressive. I even they had like a chain spot I went to.
Put your hand up to the camera so I could slap it there, huh?
Get out of here, guy. But then they went like there was like a local Spanish like chain that I went to, and they had like steak and eggs and sweet potato, and I was just like, this place is amazing. Like the food here is awesome. So mad respect to them and the food. And it's funny, like I ate more because we did all of our events at Irish pubs. So I ate like more Irish food than I probably ate.
That's terrible.
Yeah. But it was like shepherd's pie 2 nights in a row, hamburger 3rd night in a row. You know what I mean? Like that.
You were getting after it a little bit.
Dude, I eat hamburgers. I love hamburgers. The good macros.
But shepherd's pie? My guy's getting after.
Shepherd's pie, bro. that's like deep in my soul, like comfort food. That's like my mom used to make that when I was little. So
there's mashed potato in there, right?
Dude, people get freaked out about starches. They're good for you, man. Like your muscles and your brain, they work off of starch. You need a little bit. You can't overdo it. That's where people mess up. Is like you gotta portion control.
So like so I don't overdo it if I have like mac and cheese, mashed potatoes, and French fries. That's not overdoing it.
That's the meal.
Yeah. Is that cool? We're good there?
It seems like a lot of carbs there, Coach.
Oh, that's too much. Okay. I didn't know where the line was. All right, that'll do it for Take Command. We are back at it on Tuesday. We're going to have a little, or on Thursday rather. We've got a cool plan for you. I think we're going to look at the rookie class for the Commanders this year, dive into how they're doing without a game to look forward to. And then next week, we're going to be able to break the team down both sides of the ball for the games that have been played from a 10,000-foot view. So we got a lot of content coming your way. I'm planning on getting something cranked out on Sunday, on NFL Sunday as well, that we'll have in the feed. So we're still going to keep the rhythms of our normal Take Command pod. So make sure the feed is in your queue and that you are coming back and checking in throughout the bye week. But we give you 3 episodes a week. Spread the word. You can watch us on YouTube on 106.7 and Team 980, and, of course, listen wherever you get your audio. For producer Evan and Logan, I'm Grant saying so long. This has been Take Command.